welcome back to Purple Friends. How's that? Welcome back to Purple Friends.
Yes, everybody. Hello. I'm Joe.
And I'm Co.
And as you heard, we're your Purple Friends.
We're just trying to make therapy a little less clinical for everybody.
Exactly, right? Approaching some of these things in a lighthearted manner. Let me turn off this light.
Yes, let's set
There
the mood.
we go.
That's better.
There we go.
That's great. We're podcasting by candlelight.
It's actually really nice.
It is nice. And it stinks so good.
It stinks so good. I wanted to let everyone know that we're talking about attachment styles today. Considering we're in February, everyone likes to think about love and Valentine's Day. And so
we're going to ruin it.
No. But yeah, something relevant to that. And so I figured talking about attachment theory and attachment styles might be exactly what everyone needs this February.
This is great because I know almost nothing about attachment styles.
Really?
I did a very base level of research for this episode just to try to put it together a little bit. But I'm going to be very much a student.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to break it down for everybody,
cool.
Including you.
Yeah. I think before we get into that, though, we're going to do something that a little tradition we're trying to get established on this podcast.
A little grateful nuggets.
A little grateful nuggets. I love that we call it something different every episode. That is actually my favorite part about it. What are we grateful for?
I have a lot, actually. I was thinking about this. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was really getting me excited to record and share them. First, I'm like super grateful for the new season of Severance.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
I have been like rewatching the first season and listening to their podcast. I don't know. The story really tickles my brain, and I'm so excited to have it continue to unfold. And I'm new episode tomorrow, I think.
Yeah. Oh, can we tell them the little secret that happened to us?
Yeah. It was very fun.
So last week is when, we're recording this earlier. It's still January. You're going to hear this in February, but we got to watch, due to some sort of bug or error in our Apple TV Plus subscription, we got to watch the season premiere a day early.
It was bananas. We had finished watching we were rewatching the first season. The finale ended and it said continue watching.
And it was like 5, 4. And we were just grab each other like, is this real?
Yes. And we're like, oh my God, we have to, right?
It's just a trailer. But no. it was the real, it was amazing.
We felt so special.
It's like still like giving me energy today.
Same.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful for Severance and for the new season.
That's awesome.
That's just one of the things. I've got more if you want more.
Oh, I mean...
You go first.
Okay, I'll do. I have a good one. I'm really grateful for dinosaurs. Yes, there's been a big dinosaur situation happening in our house.
Yeah.
I'm a dinosaur kid who never grew out of it. Our daughter, who's 3, is now very, very into dinosaurs.
Born into dinohood.
Yeah. Her favorite movie right now is unbelievably We're Back, a Dinosaur Story from 1993.
Yeah. Not far behind is The Land Before Time.
Yes, both 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. Vastly different movies.
Yeah. She also really loves The Good Dinosaur.
Yeah.
That one's not our favorite for some reason.
It's because it's kind of like... I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. It's like the Old West kind of pastiche.
Yeah.
It's like dinosaurs in the Old West like kind of overlap too much in my opinion. It's like, let's do some new, other cool kind of dinosaur stuff. But hold on. Can we go back to The Land Before Time 1 versus 2 really quick? Okay.
Vastly different movies.
I'm sure a lot of people have seen or at least like know of The Land Before Time, Littlefoot, his mom dies. He's got to go find the Great Valley, whatever. It's a somewhat intense movie for kids.
Kind of somber, kind of dark.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Like it's like quite dark, I would say, through almost the entire movie until the very, very end. Contrasting with the second movie, which is literally like a pastel sing-along.
Yeah, it's like a musical.
With like references to all kinds of... There's a song about eggs. Yeah. It's such a good song too. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that's Eggs by, I believe, the band The Roaches. Roches, the Eggs.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Grateful for Dinos.
Grateful for Dinos.
Severance.
Grateful for Severance season 2. So excited.
Shall we get into it then?
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm warmed up. I'm great.
Awesome. Me too. Do you want to define for our audience what attachment styles are?
Yeah. At a very high level, I can do that. So attachment styles are patterns of how we connect with and relate to others in close relationships. These patterns are often established in early childhood and based on our interactions with primary caregivers and continue to influence our relationships throughout our lives.
Yeah. So it is just a pattern of like how we grow to understand and feel within relationships.
Yeah.
There are essentially 4 different attachment styles. There is secure attachment, anxious, preoccupied attachment, dismissive, avoidant attachment, and fearful, avoidant attachment. I'm going to go through each one real quick and just kind of go through what each like characteristics of each. Secure attachment, like that's the one we're striving for.
Yeah,
you know,
it sounds of those 3 that you mentioned, that's the only one that's not like really, really bad sounding.
Yeah, honestly, like they kind of give it away. If this was like a multiple choice answer and it's like, which one do you want? It's like pretty obvious. The secure
you look
one.
at those 4 and you're like, secure. It's too simple. Who has secure?
But secure attachment is essentially viewed as healthy. You know, there's trust. You feel comfortable being vulnerable. There's a higher levels of like self-esteem and confidence.
You're talking about as an adult.
No, not necessarily as an adult and like in children.
Okay.
Because attachment theory and attachment styles are not just reserved for romantic relationships. In fact, I feel like the theory itself was kind of born out of studying the parent-child relationship. Yeah, so I'll get into that a little later. But yeah, secure attachment is what you want.
Yes.
You know?
It sounds great, honestly, like right on its face.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about your partner or your parent. You know, there's this safety and security, comfort, all the good feels, right? Nice. But once we move into anxious preoccupied, right, things start to feel not as comfortable. Anxious preoccupied is often categorized as maybe dependent or clingy, very worried and anxious about being abandoned. So there's often a lot of need for reassurance, need for validation, seeking out, maybe more so, you know, trouble trusting your partner, trouble trusting even like again, parent-child relationship, trusting that they're going to be there, right? And so there's this preoccupation with that relationship. You know, am I safe here? Are they going to leave me? Am I doing enough? And that's something that I see and work with a lot with clients. Struggling with those feelings because they can be very uncomfortable when you're trying to build a relationship. Obviously, I work with adults, so when I talk about clients, you know, we are talking about attachment styles in adults, but same can be true again across the lifespan. Yeah, I
see. I'm ready for the next one. Okay. Sorry, that's what that face was.
No, that's great. The next one is dismissive avoidant, right? So these are the people that you might think of being emotionally unavailable. You know, they're kind of distant. They don't really open themselves up too much. You know, they're not going to really get vulnerable. They're not really going to give you the chance to hurt them. What?
Is that what? Well, I'll reserve. I guess I haven't heard all the multiple choices yet.
Yes. There's one more.
Okay.
And that is fearful avoidant, right? And this is a more disorganized attachment style because it's very reactive, right? At some points, there might be a lot of clinginess and needing reassurance, love bombing, you know, that seeking that out. And in the next, it might be running away, you know, like ghosting, not talking to you. Oftentimes that can happen after this person might have shared something vulnerable. Again, this fear of like, oh shit, like I just shared something that makes me feel weak, and then they flee. Right. And so the idea here is like not wanting to get hurt, but having potentially a lot of history of being hurt. Right. So not knowing how to respond. What's on your mind?
Oh, you see me making all kinds of faces over here.
Yes. You're very expressive.
I was just thinking, I'm sure as everyone probably is as they're listening to you describe these 4 types, like trying to figure out which one you fall into. And as you're reading through them, and they kind of are sounding, forgive me, worse and worse and worse. And each one I'm like, oh, maybe that's me. Uh-oh, no, that one sounds wrong with me. Uh-oh, that last one maybe sounds like me.
No. And
is there hope for people in all of these categories?
My goodness. Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
If you've ever worked with me, like I'm always going to be seeking hope in any situation. Like I'm going to be like, oh, I still have hope for you. I still have hope for the situation. Like there's like, yes, even if you consider yourself having fearful avoidant or anxious preoccupied, whatever that you are struggling with, like you could learn to find a secure attachment. I fully believe that.
That is true.
So no, they are not fixed over time.
Okay.
Upon reflection, hearing some of these, what are your thoughts? I mean, do you want to share any of those thoughts of what was going through your mind?
Well, no, just as you were describing fearful avoidant, when you talked about like putting yourself, I guess I kind of paraphrased it in my head as like one way that manifests is like putting yourself out there, and then like running away right after.
Yep.
Like as like somebody who like makes music and sometimes like sends it to people to see if they want to collaborate. Like that's something that like I really struggle with.
Yeah.
Like, you put yourself out there, like, it's scary.
It very much is, and I think I do want to be clear. I feel like those are, that as a concept is one thing, but it's not necessarily always tied to like attachment, right?
Oh, okay.
It's more
I'm a student. Right?
like what you described there, I think is more so like feeling that towards yourself. Like, oh, I put myself out there. I got rejected. That sucks. It's a little different from like, for example, if I were to come to you and share an insecurity of mine, for example, and you stomp all over and you're like, oh, well, didn't you know that?
It takes
like, 2
to tango is what you're saying.
Right. It's in terms of building that relationship,
Yes.
that attachment with a person.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a little bit of a difference there, but yeah, same feeling I think comes up.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. None of these attachment styles are diagnosable, but they are characteristics that I think people often do struggle with and can contribute to pre-existing mental health disorders or conditions.
Yeah. So you said they're not diagnosable, but they are like supported by a lot of research.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So much research. I mean, do you want me to get started with that? Because I got a little nug.
Yeah, let's hear one.
Well, I mentioned.
Sorry, go ahead.
I mentioned earlier that this theory is kind of born out of the parent-child relationship, and one of the major studies that kind of contributed to that was Harry Harlow. I don't know what year, apologize, but it's a fairly famous study where he studied rhesus monkeys separated at birth, from their parent, and just understanding what do they gravitate towards? What is necessary in terms of comfort, security, attachment?
Oh, this is that really sad and upsetting experiment.
Yes.
Can you describe it in all of its glory?
So essentially, like I said, they take these baby monkeys away from their parent, and they put them in a cage with 2 surrogate mothers.
Right.
And so there are these wire mothers, essentially just like a wire cylinder.
Yeah.
With a bottle, to feed the baby. And there's another surrogate mother in the cage. Again, it's kind of similarly shaped, but she's made of cloth, so she's a little softer. And what the study found was that babies spent majority of their time with the cloth mother, and only went to the wire mom when they needed to eat. Showing that like attachment is not just like filling your baby's physiological needs, right? Like, cool, we feed our child and we have a house over her, but we also enrich her life in other ways, right? That aren't these biological needs. So I think that study really shed light into those components of attachment. And like I said, that went on and built this theory around parent-child. So then they kind of not replicated the study, but there have been other studies of like parents and children in a room, and like babies in new environments like tend to stay close to their parent, right? But as you and I have seen with our own kid, like once they start to get a little bit more comfortable, they know that you're going to be there, you're within eyesight, they start to get adventurous. They get curious about what's around them. They start to talk, to the people in the room or play with the toys in the room. And if something happens, usually they'll run back, right? Like oftentimes they'll just need a reassuring hug. They get hurt. They come back to mom. Even just like looking back to seeing that their parents are there is enough to boost their confidence to continue exploring, continue being curious, making new connections, because that's their secure base, right? So that's where all of this comes from, is having a secure base that essentially gives us the energy and the power to go out and explore, right? Because that is really scary. We've often talked about, new things being very scary. And that's true again across the lifespan. And so having a secure attachment is very crucial, I think, throughout your life. And so it might change, in childhood, it starts with your parent. Obviously now I would say like my spouse is my secure attachment. I feel very secure in this relationship along with my family as well. But, I think for some people, their homes can be a very secure attachment for them, jobs, like it's, if you have a secure base, right, where you can go back, recharge, re-energize, and feel secure, then it gives us the energy to go out and do our job and meet new people and try new things. So yeah, that's
your nug.
That's my nug.
Okay. That's really interesting. I'm going to run through a little bit of the research that I did here. So in 1969, John Bowlby did the pioneering work that laid the foundation for attachment theory, highlighting the critical role of early caregiving experience in shaping attachment patterns, kind of similar to what you were talking about. Mary Ainsworth in 1978, the Strange Situation Study identified the 4 main attachment styles and their associated behaviors in infants.
So actually, this is the study that I had meant, like that I was referring to when I was like, oh, they had a study where like babies would be in a room with their parent.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And so this is exactly it. They would put these babies in different strange situations and see how they react. And honestly, you would see the different attachment styles pretty clearly in babies. Like if there is a preoccupied attachment, like for example, leaving a baby at daycare, secure attachment usually says like baby will be upset when your caregiver leaves, but will eventually learn how to self-soothe, feel comfortable, feel secure, and gets excited when the caregiver comes back.
Right.
Some of these other attachment styles, you might see a baby inconsolable, right? Like crying all day, really struggling, clinging to parent, not wanting to stay at daycare, time and time again. That's more of an anxious attachment presentation in children. Dismissive avoidant, right? You take your baby to daycare the first time, they don't give a flying F if you left and they don't notice when you come back. Yeah. Right. There's this just kind of like distance and avoidance of like, I can't really rely on you anyway. So is it really a difference of whether or not you're here? And yeah, the fearful avoidant is again, this kind of disorganized reaction of not knowing, of crying, of being sad, of being happy, of being angry. So yeah, thank you. For bringing that one up.
You're welcome.
I had not done my pre-research, and yeah, no, Mary Ainsworth's Strange Situation definitely contributed a lot to developing this theory. Was there any other personal experience that you felt like you wanted to share?
I kind of gave the impression earlier that I'm like my attachment is like all messed up. I don't know. Do you think that's true?
I don't see that in our relationship. I think in our relationship, at least, I don't know, unless you're really good at hiding it. But
no, I don't think so. I really don't think so. in our attachment.
But like an example would be like work.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. I forget that it can be a relationship to like a concept or an object or whatever, a place. Yes. Yeah. And we talked about it. My diagnosed Sunday scaries in the past related to work. But, yeah, basically that avoidant.
I mean, that fearful avoidant with
definitely
with work. Yeah. I mean, I know you struggled a lot with like a traditional work environment.
Yeah.
And because, I mean, let's be honest, a lot of our work environments aren't really conducive to creating secure attachments with their employees.
No. And in fact, the place where I worked went out of their way to dissolve secure attachments,
yeah.
I would say.
Yeah. I think that's a very common experience for many people.
Yeah.
Just feeling insecure in their workplace, you know, and fearing, am I going to be fired? Am I going to make enough? That
sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks. So let's change to something a little more positive. You talked about cultivating a secure attachment. How do you do that?
Yeah.
That sounds hard, man.
It is. It is really, really hard because again, these are things that are being developed the moment you're born, probably even before. And so these are like neural networks that are strong, that are there, you know?
Yes.
But it is possible with time and with effort, right? Noticing, being aware of the ways in which, you know, that part of you is not serving you. And maybe, and here's the thing, right? I think a lot of the times we get to the point of healing or cultivating a secure attachment in adulthood when we have more control over who's in our life, or what's in our life. And so becoming aware of the things that did lead to those insecure attachment styles, right? Like whatever they might have been. And, noticing that like, okay, maybe that part of me needed to be here when I was living at home in order to survive. I needed to be emotionally distant so that I could just get through my formative years.
Sure.
But then noticing and realizing, okay, this thing that was keeping me safe, these walls that were protecting me are now keeping me from the things I want. They're keeping me from having a deep and emotional relationship. They're keeping me from having success and happiness in our workplace.
Yes, dude, it all comes back to trauma, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, yes, absolutely.
It's so interesting. Like, just listening to you talk, I'm just thinking of all the different things that are affected by it. Like, your past relationship affects your current relationship. Your past job affects your current job. Like, your past relationship with your boss affects your current relationship with your boss. Like, all this trauma and baggage and stuff that we carry, all this invisible SHIT that's on our back.
Yeah, no, we do carry it with us. And like I said, from like an IFS standpoint, it's like all these versions of ourselves that kind of are forced out of us again through situations.
Sorry, IFS meaning internal family systems.
Internal family systems, yes, which we can make an episode about sometime soon.
Definitely.
But yeah, all these different parts of us that kind of have to be born in different situations. So the part of us that needs to be born at work or with our family or with our friends or with this partner, and getting to know that part of us, right? Like, so that part might actually be carrying a lot of pain and a lot of weight. And we might not even want to associate with that part of us because it's like ugly and stinky and heavy and like who we don't want to deal with that. And so we exile them, you know, we toss them aside, we distract ourselves, we, you know, yes, we just, by any means necessary, try to avoid that part of us.
Yeah.
But I think that once we befriend that part of us, get to know it, understand it, and like catch them up to what's going on now. So like if that part of you that was born out of having to survive your family situation. And now you're like living on your own and there is no family situation. Like you don't have to constantly be dealing with that, catching that part up and being like, hey, you don't have to have those walls anymore. You don't have to protect me in that way anymore because I got us. Like I can protect me, you know, like I can say no. I have a home outside of the thing that was causing us pain to keep us safe. And so you don't have to hold that anymore. Obviously this is through a long time.
Yeah,
of like
that's what I was going to say. What you're talking about
awareness.
is like deconstruction, basically.
Oh, yes. Yeah. That's a really good way of putting it. Mm-hmm.
You build your walls and then you have to deconstruct them.
And we don't want to get rid of them. I want to be clear too. Like none of the parts of ourselves, even the exiles, like we want to integrate them, right?
Parts of them make us stronger, more aware.
Exactly. Because like we don't want to avoid any parts of us. I mean, like we're the ones who've experienced our whole lives, you know, and
you can just put part of yourself far away, like in your toe. Like,
right. I think that when we do that, you might start to feel a lot of that push pull, that internal conflict of like this or that. That's like one of the things I tend to see a lot in clients is like if they're feeling just like disorganized thinking or again, like an internal struggle, a lot of the time that points to like, there's an exile somewhere that you're wanting to leave behind and they're just not letting you, as they should.
Yeah.
You know?
Did you want to talk about any other broad topics about?
Yeah. I mean, we had talked about like building trust. That's something that I work on with couples is like, vulnerability. Yeah. Right. I think one of the main concepts in a lot of these attachment styles is vulnerability. And like in a secure attachment, it's a little easier to be vulnerable, right? Because, you know, I'm going to show this weak side of myself or what I perceive to be a weak side of myself. And know that I'm not going to get hurt by you, by me sharing this with you. But And that builds trust, right? Like I'm going to trust you more then, right? But if someone shares something vulnerable and that person doesn't honor that, you know, and doesn't respect it or care for it, then there is no trust, right? That opportunity to build trust has now been used to like build a bigger wall, in my opinion. Yeah. So if you are wanting to build trust in any relationship, I think one, having both parties aware that that's something that they want to be working towards.
Yeah. Because it involves like both people being very vulnerable.
And very intentional. Yes. If I'm going to share something, I want to be intentional about it. And I want you to be like intentionally thinking listening. Exactly. So I do think that it does require both parties' awareness and attention.
This is a tough one. This is rebuilding relationships, kind of. Yeah. Reforming them.
Yeah. You essentially do have to go against those things that, like I said, you rely on to keep you safe. And that's really scary. It's like going, I don't know, snorkeling without a life jacket, a life jacket, you know?
If you go snorkeling without a snorkel, you're just swimming, folks.
You have to feel strong enough in yourself to feel like you can trust yourself to like do that and recover if it goes bad. So yeah, it's like I said, it can be a really complex situation and really hard because it goes against a lot of like our wiring. I think because of a lot of these attachment styles and theories.
Also, like, it's like an unequal amount of trust, almost like if you have a boundary up against somebody, you have to trust them so much more to like lower your boundary and be vulnerable with them and trust them not to mess up this time versus them just like, continual. I get another chance. You know what I mean? Like it's really very brave, very much putting yourself out there.
And like I said, it is a continuous thing. You have to, like you said, this time, you know, it's an active choice every time. Yeah. So and we'll talk about this maybe when we talk about relationships with narcissists and narcissistic parents. But that, right, like choosing every time to create and cultivate a space where this person feels safe to share vulnerable things about them. And for you to use it too, if only one person is sharing or one person is, being vulnerable, again, it creates that like imbalance and might actually contribute to developing an insecure attachment style. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's a lot of info your way, guys.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, I think that's probably a good place to wrap it up then.
Yeah, I think so.
That's been attachment styles. It's heavy. That's a heavy one. Can be.
It can be. Yeah, it definitely can be. But I do think it's important. And like I said, it's very relevant.
I feel like I was just recorded, participating. I was in a class. I was just
you looked very attentive, which is, I appreciate.
I wish that I had looked a little more talkative. Oh, you know what I want to say? I kind of messed this up last time, but I really wanted to remind everybody to drink some water for your purple friends. If you don't mind. Forget about the cookie thing. Just drink water.
Yeah, definitely do something for yourself. Meet a need. Do it for your purple friends.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Meet your needs. Meet your little Sims needs. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You got it.
You got it.
You got this.
You got it.
You can do this.
All right, guys.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Purple Friends is an independent podcast produced by Vibe Therapy Services and is not a substitute for a session with a real therapist. Our show art was created by Jocelyn Lang, and our theme music is Nature Nurture by The Implied Bear. Vibe Therapy is an Illinois-based private practice serving clients in person at our Wheaton office and virtually throughout the state of Illinois. We accept Blue Cross Blue Shield PPO, United Healthcare, Aetna, and Cigna Insurance. We also offer private pay rates as well as free 15-minute initial consultations. Therapy doesn't have to feel clinical. Visit vibetherapyservices.com to see if we vibe.